Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Oh, right. Yeah. Here we go.
I'm the Reverend Dr. Jayme Mathias, pastor of Holy Family Catholic Church in Austin, Texas. During the various courses of our parish's Theological Institute, we've been learning a lot about the historical critical method. You see, as Catholics, we don't tend to interpret the scriptures literally, as many of our brothers and sisters do. Instead, we attempt to reconstruct the world in which the ancient authors of the Bible penned their Hebrew and Christian scriptures. We try to understand the who, what, where, why, and when of each text. And we tend to ask questions, and we tend to be critical. Hence the name, the historical critical method. And so, using the historical critical method, we might ask ourselves why today's readings were written. The author of today's first reading, the story of God calling Abraham in the book of Genesis, was written to show how Abraham is a model, an example for all of us. God called Abraham, and Abraham responded. God asked Abraham to leave his parents' house and to set off to another land, and the reading tells us that Abraham went as the Lord directed him. Abraham walked by faith. He took a leap of faith. And for that reason, all Jews, Christians, and Muslims today refer to him as their father in the faith. And so today's first reading challenges us to walk by faith, to take a leap of faith, and to follow in the footsteps of faithful Abraham. And why was today's gospel written? We've said several times that Matthew is trying to convince us that Jesus is the new Moses. Matthew is trying to convince the Jews, those who followed Moses and Moses' law, that a new Moses had now arrived on the scene. And this new Moses was Jesus of Nazareth. Moses escaped a slaughter of innocent children, and so did Jesus. Moses came up out of Egypt, and so did Jesus. Moses experienced God on a mountain, and so where do Jesus' disciples see him transfigured in today's gospel? On a mountain. Yes, Matthew wanted us to believe that Jesus is greater than the law and the prophets, and that's why Matthew tells us that the transfigured Christ appeared with Moses, the giver of the law, on one side, and with Elijah, the great prophet, on the other. Matthew's message was clear. If you followed Moses and or Elijah in the past, it's time to follow the true light of the world, Jesus of Nazareth. Today's gospel is important because the disciples, Peter, James, and John, recognize their transfigured friend, Jesus, as the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God with whom God was well pleased. Did you catch that in today's gospel? According to Matthew, a voice came from the cloud telling the disciples that their friend Jesus was God's beloved Son. Because of that voice, they recognized who Jesus was. 2,000 years later, we don't always hear booming voices coming from the clouds. We don't always see people transfigured before us, their faces shining like the sun. And still, we're called to see with eyes of faith. We're called to make a leap of faith and to believe that the resurrected Christ is found in all the faces we encounter day after day. The faces of those family members who can sometimes be irritating, they are God's beloved children. The faces of those classmates and co-workers who don't always treat us so well, they are God's beloved children. The faces of those neighbors who just aren't the friendliest neighbors in the world, they are God's beloved children. If only we had the eyes to see them for who they are, if only we had the faith to believe that they really are beloved children of God. Brothers and sisters, we find ourselves in the midst of our Lenten journey, these 40 days in which we're called to more closely follow Abraham, our father in the faith, and these 40 days in which we're called to grow in our relationship with God and with those around us. Let us pray that we might have the strength that comes from God to leave behind our grudges and prejudices and preconceptions, so as to recognize and to treat all the people around us this week as the beloved children of God they are.